Welcome to the Artful Dollar podcast. It's me, Ryan Roi, tattoo artist, financial coach, spiritual seeker, philosopher, thinker, whatever you want to call me. I am here today to talk on the topic of fear, but really my experience with fear and really the value that fear has to offer. I think we spend most of our lives avoiding fear and pain. Right? That's pretty much, you could say, most of your day. And if you really want to think about it, like if you want to get deep, like most of our personality is sort of constructed through trial and error and experience and behaviors and thoughts, patterns that we've inherited and learned over time. But more or less, our personality, our identity, you could say, is constructed to avoid fear and pain at all costs in any way, shape, or form. Now, we all have different strategies for doing that, right? It can manifest in various ways. You know, I've dealt with addiction in my life. So a way that I dealt with avoiding pain and fear for a long time was through the use of drugs and alcohol. Now, eventually, the method I used to avoid pain and fear was more painful than the pain I was avoiding. And so I had to quit, right? And then I just poured that energy into work, right? I got a little bit of a workaholic streak to me, I'll admit. But if you're really honest with yourself, we are just programmed, like in our deep animal brain, our lizard brain, to avoid fear and pain. And now that's an interesting fact, right? It's not good or bad. It is certainly interesting. And what is the cost of constantly going about life avoiding fear and pain? And what's the opportunity that fear and pain has to offer? So we just had a guest speaker in my course. The course is also called the Artful Dollar. We have hundreds of artists learning, growing in the area of money and finance. And we regularly have guest speakers. And my father, who is a philosopher, he has a degree in philosophy, he came in and did a talk on a quote. Who's the quote by now? I'm going to mess it up. It's an old philosopher. I'm going to mess up his name right now, but I'll put it in the show notes. The quote is, "Where the danger lies, there the saving power grows." Where the danger lies, there the saving power grows. And we really did kind of an exploration into where the saving power, the grace, the mercy, the beauty that can be available to us, where the danger lies. And we were obviously, pertaining this to our relationship with money. And, I'm sure if you're listening to this, I don't think there's a human being on the planet that exists in a capitalist society that hasn't experienced money fear. And you could say, we try to avoid money fear, right? But you can't really ever avoid it. At least in the current context of the conversation around money, it's a triggering topic. It is inherently emotional. Let's just say that for now, in the current paradigm around money, it is inherently emotional, and we don't really talk a lot about that, right? You go to your accountant, you go to your financial advisor, and you say, "Hey, I really want to talk about how I feel about money." They're going to just look at you like you have three heads. But I really think that's a really fascinating conversation. And in fact, I think if we're trying to learn about money and get better with money, and we're not talking about the way we feel about money, we're only talking about half the situation, if that, right? So how are we going to solve our money problems if we're not addressing the feelings, the emotions, the psychological concepts, constructs around money? Right? We can't just talk about the numbers. We need to talk about all that because it is inherently a part of it. So in my life, if I think back to all the times that I experienced financial fear, right? There were times where at least I was perceiving it to be the case that I didn't have enough money or wasn't going to have enough money for a particular scenario in my life. And something actually really big that came up was when I had a kid. And anyone that has kids, I guarantee you feel financial fear. Because you're like, oh shit, there's this third, fourth, fifth person that I gotta pay for. And I don't know if you know it, kids are expensive. They are, really. And so I had to pay for daycare. And in New York City, the cost of daycare so that me and my ex-wife could work was the same as if we were to rent another apartment. Like we could have rented this baby a third apartment or second apartment, I guess. Anyway, we could have rented it its own apartment, put a gerbil water feeder and a bowl of milk or some Cheerios in there and left her all day. And obviously we would never do that. I'm not condoning that. Don't get crazy on the internet there. Remember, these are the crazy thoughts that would run through my mind. I'm like, we could just rent her a damn apartment. It was like $1,800, $2,000, sometimes up to $3,000 a month for daycare. And it's like, you almost question yourself, why are we even working? So I was in fear. I was in financial fear. And I didn't know, how am I gonna pay? I didn't think about this. I didn't plan for this. I mean, I obviously knew that kids were gonna be more expensive. And I just said to myself, well, I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna figure it out. And there were other times in my life where I had figured it out. Like it just fell into place. And I didn't know how, and I wasn't really sure that I was making all the right moves, but I kind of just refused to, when I got my first private tattoo studio, I, took on this new rent, and I was used to working in street shops my whole life, and all of a sudden now I have to pay for this space, but I was just committed, I'm gonna make it work. And that happened over and over. Now there was fear, but the fear wasn't necessary, but I went where the danger was, and there the saving power grows. I learned so much from taking on this added responsibility of kids, of a business, of hiring people, right? That's a new one in my life recently in the past year. I've had tattooers, work at my shop as a private contractor, but I never really hired anyone on salary. Now, for the podcast and for the coaching business, I have, I think, 3 or 4 people on salary, and then I have several contractors that I pay. We're growing. We're trying to serve people all over the world, and we have assistant coaches and sales and marketing and COOs. It's wild to take on this level of responsibility, and I find myself again in this place where, believe it or not, Ryan Roi experiences financial fear. It's okay. It's okay to experience financial fear. And as a financial coach, I'm not ashamed to say that I experience financial fear. I use that fear, and I use tools to deal with that fear. And that's really the difference, I'd say, between, me, Ryan Roi, as a financial coach, and me, Ryan Roi, 5 years ago when I wasn't a financial coach, or maybe 10 years ago, because 5 years ago I was working on these things. But yeah, 5 years ago, I didn't have the tools that I have today. And so I practice these tools when I experience new levels of responsibility, new levels of fear. And really, I'll tell you what the number one biggest tool that I have used to deal with financial fear is surrender and trust. Surrendering to the universe. And I don't know what you believe in, and I have no intention of, pushing my beliefs on anyone. But I use the word God. Like I believe in God. I don't know what God I believe in. It's certainly not like a Judeo-Christian God. And honestly, I use the word God as like a placeholder for something I cannot understand, right? That's grand, big picture that I do not fully understand. I'm going to call it God. Sometimes I call it the mother, Pachamama in the ayahuasca communities. I surrender and I just trust that, let's call it the universe, right? It doesn't matter what word we use to speak of it. It's like, that's what we're speaking of. Like in the Tao, they say, the Tao we speak of is not the true Tao, right? The God we speak of is not the true God. I surrender and trust that this divine universe that is intelligent and has created the DNA that has constructed the life on this planet, which in my opinion right there is proof enough that there is some cosmic intelligence at work here, right? Humans didn't create DNA. Some cosmic something far greater than my limited human being, limited mind can understand is at work, and I'm going to surrender to the flow of that energy, to that divine intelligence that created the universe. And so that really lets me kind of take a breath and relax and say, okay, there's other things at play. There's other factors that I cannot control, nor do I know what they are right now. Let me surrender to them. And then let me trust in that divine intelligence. And also let me trust in myself. Let me trust. In the past, I have dealt with difficult financial situations and I've overcome them. And I didn't always know what it looked like on the other side of the challenge that I was facing, but I marched forward into the danger. I didn't run away from it. And man, my life is extraordinary because I walked into the danger. Sometimes I say I leaned into the danger. I didn't dive in, right? I think that can be a little dangerous if we're just like, give me the danger, right? I wasn't Evel Knievel, but I certainly leaned into the uncomfortable, unfamiliar, scary, seemingly dangerous notions, feelings, thoughts, experiences in my life, and I have been rewarded greatly. And now I have suffered, and I still do sometimes. I still suffer, right? I'm not a fully enlightened being, but my relationship with money, my relationship with myself, my relationship with spirituality, it's all different facets of the same crystal. It's all different sides of the same piece. And so when I deal with my relationship with money, when I deal with my relationship with my spirit, with my relationship with God, or what have you, it all evolves together. And that's why I work with money. I don't work with money. I'm not a financial coach because I think money's cool. I don't care about money inherently. I care about the relationship that we have with money. I don't want it to be a burden. I don't want people, particularly artists, who I think are so important and crucial to the future survival of humanity. I think we need free thinking, creative minds in order to overcome the challenges that we as a species have laid out for ourselves in terms of global warming and technology and, AI, that who knows what's going to happen. But I really do think it's going to take creative thinking and creative, passionate, loving, caring artists to bring humanity forward in the direction that I hope it goes in. That's why I'm really passionate about artists. And I don't want artists to experience money as a burden or as a limitation to them expressing themselves. And that's why I'm a financial coach. It's not because I care about money. It's because I care about art and creativity, and I come from that place. So what nugget of wisdom are we taking? I mean, maybe there was a couple here, right? That one thing is related to everything. I always say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you look, the way you do money might even show up in the way you deal with your health or even your art. I certainly for years had a very different relationship with my art than I did with my money, but there were definitely some disorganized elements to my creative practice that showed up in my financial practice. So that is to say, and we can talk about that another time, but one thing is related to everything. When you heal yourself, when you heal your relationship with money, you heal your spirit, you heal your soul, and vice versa. When you heal yourself spiritually, I think you inevitably will end up impacting your relationship with money. And where the danger lies, there the saving power grows in your life. Don't run away from the danger. Don't avoid situations and circumstances where you feel called. And I often talk about my decision-making processes. I'll think about something up here, but I'll also think about it here in my gut. And if there's a lot of fear going on up here, but my gut is just like, do it, go. I feel called. I feel pulled in that direction. Then I do it. I take that action, and I've gotten really good at listening to the brain up here and the brain over here and making decisions from that place and saying, well, if I'm afraid up here, but my gut is calling me to take action in that direction, that's actually probably the best sign that this is going to be good for me. This is going to put me in a position to learn. Now, it might be difficult, it might be painful, and it might be fucking scary. But, oh God, that's where the gold is. That's where the most valuable and enriching life experiences lie, is in that place where you're afraid up here and your gut over here is saying, do it, go. So that's really what I want you to take from this conversation, and look at the decisions that you make in life and see, can you listen to, you could call it your heart chakra, you could call it your gut. Biologically, we have neurons in our stomach that are attached to our brain. And so there is thinking going on here, and to trust that and to learn how to trust that, I think is a really powerful skill that has rewarded me financially, rewarded me spiritually, and just in general, provided a very rewarding life that I would not change anything about the way I've done my life, to be honest. And I've made a ton of mistakes, but I wouldn't change them because I learned so much from those mistakes. So that's today's episode. Where the danger lies, there the saving power grows. Lean into the fear, trust your gut, and know that when you heal yourself, you are healing your relationship with money and vice versa. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Artful Dollar. Take care. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I just want to prompt that if you got some value out of this conversation, please go and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you saw this podcast. It really helps me out and it really helps other people to find this podcast. I want more people to have these types of conversations around money so that we can all be more free and at ease and abundant and able to create the lives that we really want to live. So please share this and rate and review. Appreciate it. Thanks.